tutorial which will show you how to put third-party quick releases onto Thrustmaster wheels with the new quick release attachment as shown here on the 488 wheel. So with your wheel you'll be supplied with a couple of these, one for the new style quick release and one for the old style with this spiral. Now no one wants to see a load of 3D printed plastic hanging off the back of their wheel. So to reduce that and to give a perfect fit, we need this part. So I'm just going to show you how to turn it from that into that. You might think, oh, that's simple, but there's just a little knack to it because sometimes it's a little bit tight. So it comes with the wheel will come with one of these Torx keys. So I recommend undoing these just a few millimeters each. Don't take them all the way out. And then to release the two parts together that can be quite stiff, just push on the screws and that releases it. So now that's loose. So now I'll remove these 3 screws and separate these two parts. Okay, so there we have our separated part. Now our quick releases come in 2 different options. We've got this larger one here that will fit quick releases with either a 70mm hole diameter, that's a Moser one, or a 50mm hole diameter. This is the SimMagic one. They also do a 70mm one. You'll see the difference once they're fitted. But basically, if you've got a 50mm one adapter, it's going to look a little bit more compact and neat on the back. But these adapters, they take the 70mm, but because they've got the extra space there anyway, we've put the holes in, so our 70mm adapters will take either a 70mm quick release and look like that, or a 50mm quick release, but as you see they've got this overhang on them when they're fitted. So for versatility, go with the 70-50, which does both, or if you've only got 50mm, you might want to choose the more compact 50mm release. So to get started, just to note, the rounded edges are the top and the chamfered edges are the bottom. So you'll notice our quick release, it has got a USB-C connection, which I would always recommend using. It's got a groove here so you can put a coiled USB through, and there is a cable retention device we'll get to. But I'd always choose this, but I'd consider this a sacrificial part in the event of a disaster. The worst that's going to happen is this little adapter cable is going to get damaged, as opposed to something yanking out and possibly damaging your expensive circuit board on the wheel. Right, so first of all, let's choose which QR we're going to put on. Let's do the 70mm one first. I'll just put this 50mm one to the side. So you see it's labelled top, and on the back of your QR you should be able to work out which the top one is. Normally they've got an extra little dent there, or you might look at the layout of the ball bearings or whatever design you've got. I'm only showing Moser and SimMagic here, but you can fit other ones with a 70mm or 50mm bolt pattern from other manufacturers. So we line up the dot with the top, and then we put in the screws which we supply and do them up. You want to do these up nice and tight. And if you get any issues with them coming loose, obviously you could use some Loctite thread lock. It's probably recommended, to be honest, but we don't supply thread lock, but you may want to consider some. Okay, So we've got the adapter secured to our quick release. Now we want to take our Thrustmaster piece that we separated earlier, and we find the top of our QR, and the top of this piece has rounded edges and the bottom has chamfered. So the top goes in here and you slot it into these holes, making sure not to snag the USB cable. Push that in firmly, and now we want to put in these supply screws here to attach it together. And again, you want to do these up fairly tight, or use thread lock, and use thread lock. Okay, so now we've got our quick release ready to mount to the wheel. So you see we've got a USB-C connector here on our adapter, and on the board there's a USB-C connector there. So it doesn't matter which way around you connect it, and there's enough slack here for us to be able to plug the connector in. It'll be hard to see on camera, but there's just about enough space to plug it in. Okay, and then we can get everything in position there, and then you tighten that down with the screws that came with your Thrustmaster wheel. Okay, so this is how the 70mm one looks when installed. Just put that in tight, there we go, and it will drop down as you screw these in another millimetre or so. So as you can see, it clears the shifters, and we've got our exit hole here for a coiled USB cable if you want, or a USB-C cable. And it's pretty much exactly the same procedure for the 50mm adapter, but I'll show you how that looks. So exactly the same. Find the top. This one's easy because it says Magic on it. This one is marked as top. So we put those together. We drop in our screws. Then we take our Thrustmaster piece, put the USB cable through the hole. There's a little slot here that shows you where the top is that fits into this little groove here. Okay, and then the same again. Okay, so as you can see, this one does look a little bit neater. Let's get the bottom there, just because of the size of the QR. So let's see how this one looks on the wheel. Again, line up the rounded bits at the top. This one gives us a little bit more slack to play with the USB connection, and then lower that in place. There we go, and then obviously put in the 4 screws to hold that in place. So there's how that one looks. A lot more clearance you'll see over the shifter area, and there's hardly any 3D printed plastic on display there. Now when it comes to cable retention, we supply this little device here. There's a little Phillips screw there that I've already removed, but it's the same as is found elsewhere on the wheel in these holes here. Little Phillips head screw to remove, and we've got one of the same thread but just a little bit longer to allow for this tool, and that can go in there. Now because this isn't it's not a metal thread in there, it's done from a self-tapping screw. We don't really want to tap our own thread as well as that one, so the best way to do it is put the screw in there and turn it anti-clockwise until you feel it click, and then you've locked into the thread, and then it should nicely do up. Now don't over tighten it, this doesn't need to be particularly tight, just tight enough to be firm. And then I've got an example cable here. So obviously if you're using the USB-C, you might want to retain the freedom to insert it and remove it, in which case you probably don't want to use this. You just wrap it around your QR to save any snags. But if you want the extra security, this is always an option. So I would do that, and then you put the cable through there, tighten up the zip tie. These are just standard 2.5mm zip ties, so easily replaceable. Pull that nice and tight, and obviously snip this extra bit, and you've got a good bit of cable retention there if you get any snags. Now say you want to install it, instead of using the USB-C, you do want to use the direct cable into there. This is how you do it. So we have our adapter and our QR. We have our coiled USB cable. You can choose to leave this in or remove it, it's up to you. I'll leave it in for this. So it's quite a loose fit here, it's quite generous, allowing for thick cables. This is a fairly thin cable and there's plenty of space for movement there. So what I'll do is I'll just lay that in position. With the top here, and we line up our QR top with that. And we put our screws in, hold it all in place. Okay, so you see we've got our QR there all assembled, and our USB cable is quite easily manoeuvrable there. So let's now attach the Thrustmaster piece. So again, the top is the rounded bits, line that up with that, making sure we don't snag any USB cables here. Okay, so we tuck this out of the way. You may want to secure this other one. If you leave it in, you may want to secure it with tape or something, but it can just be tucked up inside like that. So we go back to our wheel here, and we just remove the one we just did. We do need to remember to install the screws that hold it all together. So we should be able to push our USB cable through, get enough slack on there to be able to plug it in. And then lower it down. Now, obviously this cable, and maybe whatever you get, is going to be a lot stiffer than our adapter cables, which are separate cables and really flexible. So you do have to be careful that as you lower it down, you're not putting pressure on here, which is then putting pressure on the USB connection. So you look down through your QR to make sure that as you lower your QR, your USB connector stays straight in the socket. There we go. So I'm looking down the top there, I can see it's straight in the socket, and you can adjust with a bit of pull and push to take any pressure off of the circuit board. So now we want to install our cable retention. And keeping that same pressure on the socket, we want to find a place on the cable to secure it. And then just snip off the extra. Okay, so probably can't see down in there because it's too dark, but you'll be able to see with a phone torch or a torch or whatever. And again, that is some good cable retention there to save you damaging. But as I say, I would always recommend using that if you can, just to save any potential damage on your wheel. So that is it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's useful. I think it's quite a nice looking solution. Incidentally, these on the 70mm one, these grooves here are to allow you the space when you're tightening up the screws to fit an Allen wrench in for these 4 screws that secure it to the wheel. That's what they're for. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, obviously drop us a message. We're happy to help. Thank you.